Thanks a lot, and thanks for staying around. So life cycle assessment is a process where we look across the whole supply chain of any product or service and calculate the environmental impacts over the whole life of that service. So if we're looking at something like diesel, we would look back right through the refining and extraction of oil and production of all the infrastructure and things that sit around that. Agriculture, we go right back and look at the production of agriculture and how it flows through the supply chain. And at each one of those points, we look at not just greenhouse gases, but a wide range of environmental impacts. We're really glad to have this project funded by Hort Innovation and supported by the Processing Fund and the Potato Fund, the Fresh Fund, to look at a comprehensive life cycle assessment of potato growing in Australia. And I am going to, it's a two-year project, and we are about halfway through. We've undertaken a literature review as a starting point. That really showed us that there wasn't a lot of data being developed on lot for potatoes in Australia. There was one study from 2008. We found some international studies, some just on carbon footprint, but yeah, it is a little bit short on information. We now started going through some farm case studies, collecting data from growers, and we'll talk about that a little bit more, and we're still looking for more growers to participate. We'll next then move into trying to calculate industry average data across different sectors, and then go into our final reporting. Life cycle assessment, how we do it, we start with developing a life cycle inventory model. To do that, we collect data from farms. We also have do like a nutrient balance for the farm to try and work out where the nutrients are moving, what's leaving the farm as emissions. We'll look at, check it against machinery calculators. We'll look at how pesticides applied to the farm might partition and what goes to groundwater, what might go off site, what degrades on farm. And then we connect all that farm data to the supply chain. So what does the supply chain look like for urea and for triple superphosphate and for the agrochemicals and for the diesel and tractors and all the things that come into the farm. We actually connect that to supply chains for those things. That gets us to a point of having a model of potatoes that we can then calculate all sorts of environmental indicators from. And mostly we're calculating climate change or carbon footprint results, because that's clearly the challenge of our age, and there's lots of people looking for those numbers. But we can also look at water footprints, we can look at land use impacts, the impacts on nutrient enrichment of waterways, but we can do other things where we may be looking at the implications for things like bioenergy or other use of products. So this project will basically take us up to sort of having this comprehensive model, and then we'll report a few of these footprints at the end here. But it actually will be a resource. It can actually be used in the future if you need to report to the European Union or to other food companies that are asking for advanced environmental data. We'll actually have a benchmark of the environmental footprint of potatoes in Australia. In this project, we'll look at climate change. We're looking at the water use and the water footprint. We are looking at eutrophication, so nutrient enrichment of waterways, and we'll also look at land occupation. But as I say, we'll have a model that could actually go much broader than that. The supply chain that we're looking at, so we've got the inputs of energy, chemicals, materials, and infrastructure coming in. We've got the seed production, potato growing, and all the activities within that, post-harvest treatment, and we're doing it for the three sectors, the French fry processors, crisp processors, and fresh. We will stop at the sort of here after post-harvest treatment. as part of this project, go up to there. It's part of this project. At the moment, we've basically got to farm gate. The current sampling, we've got currently 7 growers that we've collected data from, 6 processing and 1 fresh, 1 mini tuber and 1 seed grower. And you can see where they are. So we're getting reasonable coverage across the country, but we're really keen to get a significant increase. Currently, we've got about 5% of the, we represent 5% of the total production in terms of growers, but we're hoping to get to increase that. So looking at the results, what have we found so far? So this is for climate change. We can see the footprint sitting around 0.18 kilograms of CO2 equivalent per kilogram of potatoes. The largest impact, fertiliser production, which has sort of surprised me a little bit. The seed production is significantly larger for potatoes than it is for most other crops, where it would be minuscule. Fertiliser emissions, so this is direct emissions of nitrous oxide from application of nitrogen fertilisers on farm. Fuel use, electricity use, pesticide production is a bit larger than maybe we'd see in some other crops, and transport of inputs is sort of what we'd expect. The range of values from our 7 farms is actually quite large, and that really, I think it reflects, there are a number of things that are affecting that. They're in different states, they've got different electricity grids, which will affect the footprint. Some are irrigated, some aren't irrigated as heavily, so that's also affecting it. If we compare it to the international range, we're well within what's being reported internationally, so sort of what we'd expect. If I take that out, I look at the contribution of fertilisers. What really surprises me is normally nitrogen fertilisers would dominate a lot of crops, particularly dryland crops, and the potassium fertiliser, this is only from one of the farms, but represents 32% of the Scope 3 footprint, the upstream manufacturing footprint for fertilisers, which is quite large. And there are a number of options. The footprint of potassium contributions is actually a number of different chemicals you can use that have quite different footprints depending on the chemistry. So there's maybe some opportunities there. So the main contributions: fertiliser use, fertiliser manufacture, on-farm emissions, energy use, both in tractors and in irrigation. And then we've got less significant, the transport inputs, mini tuber, pesticide production, farm infrastructure, and farm methane from farm dams is a fairly small contribution. We still haven't worked on the post-farm processes, so we're still going to be looking at what product losses, transportation of product, and packaging. And yeah, the main influencing factors there: irrigation, energy, and the variation and the electricity, state electricity grids. We're particularly seeing Tasmania having a much lower electricity grid, and that brings down the footprint. If we look at the greenhouse gas emissions of potatoes in the context of all other crops and food things, potatoes are really low on the great source of energy at a very low footprint. But we do eat a lot of them, so once you calculate out the actual quantity, there's still obviously a significant carbon footprint associated with our potato production. Switching away from greenhouse gases, for water, unsurprisingly, the water footprint is dominated by the on-farm water use. Significant amount of water loss from evaporation from dams, which often people wouldn't calculate, and a little bit from upstream activities, the tiny black area there. So the water footprint sitting around 90 litres per kilogram of potatoes. What we then do with water footprint is we actually take that water footprint number and we relate it to the water scarcity, about how scarce is water in the regions being used. So water being used in Tassie is actually rated at a lower impact than water being used in the Murray-Darling because of the relative water stress of that catchment. And that similarly, if you're in California, we would have the same sort of high water stress there compared to other areas. So this is a map of the relative water scarcity in different regions, and demonstrates how we multiply the water into its relative stress for the point of the life cycle indicators, and that's part of an international life cycle method. We also look at eutrophication, and that's dominated by nitrogen emissions from field releases, a little bit from fertiliser production and upstream activities, and we're still looking at the into that indicator. We don't really have much other things to compare against that, but we are working on that. How to benefit from the project. So this will give us really robust greenhouse gas emission data, both as an industry, but also for different regions. It helps us identify what our expectations are for decarbonisation in the industry. How hard will that be? Where are the major impacts? What are our possibilities for decarbonising within that? The priorities really in farm energy use, fertiliser supply and fertiliser use will be really important. Next steps for the project, we're looking to increase our sample. So any growers who are interested in participating, either see me afterwards or snap the QR code and send us an email. It's not that difficult. We're not after, huge amount of data. We can actually work with, high level total data across the growing season. And what you'll get back for participating from us is a one-page carbon footprint summary of your crop. So we're able to provide that back, and all the data is brought into the project is made confidential before it's aggregated up to the total result. And I think I'll stop there. Thank you.